The following podcast is brought to you by the Johners Podcasting Network, found exclusively at WrestlingWithJohners.com.
Hello and welcome to Grappuchino Thoughts, the podcast. I am Lexi Helms. I am the Prin of the With Johners Network. I am a member of the Brood and I am also the author of Grappuchino Thoughts, the articles which you can find on WrestlingWithJohners.com. My Grappuchino machine has been fired up again and it's currently dispensing a drink for myself, for you lovely people, and my fantastic guest, which we'll get to in a moment. But for now, just make sure you're in your favourite chair and make sure that you've got your favourite drink in hand, whichever one it is. I'm sure the machine has dispensed it. And we are going to look into today's topic, which is the Hall of Fame 2021. Should there be one? So today I have an amazing guest with me, and I don't just say this because he's online and on screen. Not only is he a wrestling fan, he is the host of the radio show Channel Connelli. He's a big Dave enabler. You'll see him frequently tagging me stuff online to do with Big Dave. He's one of my oldest, my closest friends. He's seen me sober, he's seen me drunk, he's seen me happy, he's seen me sad. He is my G, my brother from another mother. So Mr. Carlos Connelli, introduce yourself, please.
Well, thanks for that. I think I'm going to have get a bigger room to get my head into now. After that, it's fantastic. My name's Carl Drury, otherwise known as Carlos Connelli. I run a rock show on Radio D-Side and also on Wonderland Radio. So if you like your rock music, 6 till 8 on a Tuesday and a Thursday on Radio D-Side, and we do it on Wonderland Radio 8 till 10. It's all kind of rock, punk, and alternative stuff. And I've been a wrestling fan for as long as I can remember, when it was on Sky One.
Wow.
Back in the day.
I also forgot to put in as well that you're a bloody talented musician as well. But there we go.
You can say that. I won't say that.
All right. He is. He is. Like, there's not many times I can go into somebody's place of work and he starts serenading me by playing Nothing Else Matters on the piano. What can I say? So... Before we get into today's topic, which obviously is the Hall of Fame, I've got a couple of questions for you. So the first one is the obvious. What made you fall in love with professional wrestling?
I think it was kind of on the upsurge in the very late 80s when I was very, very young. And you'd see everyone would talk about it. And there was a big thing about it at the time. It was in the newspapers. It was on TV. And I caught it. I think it was probably Wrestling Challenge or Superstars, one of the two. It might have been primetime wrestling on Sky One. And I was kind of hooked. So when my parents weren't at home and my nan was watching me and my sister when we were 9, maybe 10, later on Sky or Sky Sports, sometimes they would have the wrestling shows on. So my nan would fall asleep. And I'd put the wrestling on and see what was going on there. And the first thing I pretty much remember from it was the Jake the Snake and Randy Savage angle.
Wow.
With the Cobra.
What an introduction.
Yeah. So I'd seen bits and pieces beforehand, but that's the first thing that really kind of gets me thinking, oh, that's where it all started. So, and obviously you had, the Ultimate Warrior, you had Hogan, you had all the kind of the crazy gimmicks going on at the time, and it just kind of sucked you in as a youngster. You thought, wow, this is great.
Yeah, I know that feeling well. And then it never really left, did it?
It kind of did a little bit. It's when I hit kind of 18, 19 and was going out and playing gigs with bands, I didn't follow it as I would. But then when the internet came a bit more prevalent, then I kind of kept up with it a bit more on then. So I used to manage a store, and because it was quiet sometimes, I'd go have a look on like Raja.com, and all the wrestling, the news, and people would be saying, well, this is going to happen, it never happened, who's going to go from WCW, who's going to go from ECW. So there was always something going on.
Yeah.
And it just kept me more interested. So I got more interested in the backstage side of things than the front of house thing, and then it started me watching back again.
Okay, yeah, interesting. Right.
Mm.
So obviously you've been a fan for a longish time. Do you have a favourite wrestling style?
I mean, I was always brought up. I always watched WWE. I did catch a lot of ECW on Bravo back in the day. I like a lot of the British stuff as well. I actually really enjoy the kind of the old school British stuff. So there's still a few federations doing that now. When me and my kids go on holiday, we watch a lot of the wrestling which is on there. And it's brilliant, you know, because it's a lot of fun and it gets everyone involved. And if you can get that many young children who are these days who just want to go and play on games and they've got an attention span of nothing at all, and they're really getting into it, then you know you're doing your job properly. And I've seen wrestlers like Ligero and things like that doing it, you know, in prestating and things like that. So I enjoy that as much as watching, you know, the bigger stuff.
Nice. I like it.
And NXT UK, and that's pretty much the one I watch every single week, and then I'll make sure that I catch up on everything else. But I have to make sure that NXT UK is watched.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. If the world goes back to normal, we need to go back and watch that together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go back to doing that. So you've said that you primarily WWE. Is that your favourite promotion, or do you have another one? You know.
I don't watch. I mean, I've never watched a lot of Japanese stuff. I'd like to, but I've always been kind of story led. I mean, the matches are great, but you have to have something behind it to have, you know, a bit more meaning to it. So I've watched a bit of Japanese stuff, and it's fine. But because it's always been WWE, and I'm kind of going back and watching some of the old WCW stuff now as well. It's that story driven wrestling where, all right, you can get a good match out of it, but even if the match is terrible, but the angle's good, it's worth watching.
Yeah, good way to look at it, to be fair.
That's the only way to look at it.
The only way. All right then. Top 5 wrestlers.
It always was Bret Hart as a youngster.
Right.
Always. Not necessarily as a person, but as a wrestler, I thought it was the best. I thought it was incredible. Kurt Hennig.
Yeah.
When he came back in the early 2000s, I was watching the Royal Rumble and I marked out completely in the house. It was fantastic, and it's very rare that happens. Savage.
Good shout.
Always brought it. From there, it's a tricky one. I think Flair's probably after that.
Nice.
Because you can go back and you can always be entertained by Ric Flair, no matter what.
Yeah.
Next one, it's going to be a tricky one. It's probably going to be someone like Jericho.
Okay.
Who kind of reinvents himself all the time. He's never been this one character. Whereas, say Flair or Savage has always been a similar type of character, although they flipped and flopped a little bit. Jericho's always doing something different. So probably Jericho as well.
Excellent. I like that. We share a couple of top 5, but mine changes every time I'm asked.
It depends on your mood. You know, some days there'll be something different. Some days I'll be going, I'll hit some tag teams and things like that. But it just depends on where you are.
Yeah.
You know, you can look like people like Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard and things like that. You know, great wrestlers who will just probably be around the kind of 10, 11 mark on there. But there's so many good talents out there. You know, you look at now and things like Volta and things like that. Incredible.
Yeah.
But the body of work isn't quite there to go with these as yet.
Yeah, but they're still young and they can still be moulded, which is
hope so.
Fingers crossed. Right, what is your favourite moment in professional wrestling?
Involves you.
Oh, okay.
You know exactly what it is.
I think I do.
When AJ Styles won the World Championship.
Yeah.
At SmackDown in Manchester.
2017.
Yep.
We were there.
And I was not expecting it at all. There was no exception, no thinking about it at all. We just thought it was AJ Styles will lose to Jinder by some shenanigans.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen, and we jumped up like children.
Yeah.
And it was incredible. I'm not the biggest AJ Styles fan in the world. I think he's fantastic, but you know, it was just not expecting it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You'd never get it.
Wasn't there another title match on the card?
I think it was the Cruiserweight Championship?
I think so.
I think 205 was on after it, wasn't it?
Yeah. And we thought it would be that because we were talking about it with because you drove us there. And we were talking about it, and we were like, "Oh, well, that's a given. Jinder will win," and we just sort of dismissed it. And I don't actually have a memory of looking at the mat when when that third count went down for the fall. It's you. I have you in my ear shouting 2, 3, and that's it.
I just felt it was going to happen at that point, and it kept going further and further. You thought, hang on a minute, he hasn't. Something's going to happen here, and the crowd was starting to build and thinking something's going to happen. And when it did, the roof came off. Never heard anything like it.
Yeah, yeah. And I felt really shit for everyone on 205 Live after that, because the crowd was just, nothing could have topped that. I think you would have had to have had somebody like, I don't know, The Rock or Austin come out to get the same sort of electricity back. But yeah, that moment.
It was a shame because all the British guys came out as well, didn't they?
Yeah.
And you thought they would have got a really good reception if it was beforehand.
Yeah.
But everyone was just shattered. I mean, it was a long taping anyway. And we had the dark match before that, and then this, that, and the other. Such a long night, but it was brilliant. Really, really good.
Really, really was. Yeah. And to say, I still can't believe that I can sit here and say I saw the world title change.
Absolutely, yeah.
Not only did I see the world title change, I saw it happen on British soil as well, which makes it more better, which makes it more special. So thank you for that.
Right. Well, it doesn't happen, does it? I mean, it's never really happened before. It's not happened since.
No.
It will happen again.
It will, but
nobody ever expected it.
No. But I think if they're going to do it again, I think it's going to be somebody like either Drew or Pete Dunne, possibly.
Yep.
Because that would lead to undeniable scenes. And I think they should wait if they're going to do it until somebody else, until the world's back to normal. Because last year's WrestleMania, God love him, Drew did his best.
Yeah.
But
I felt sad for him.
Yeah. He's worked his arse off. He was written off when he was released way back in sort of like the late 2000s. He was written off, and basically nobody took him seriously, and he came back and he's worked his backside off. He's gone through TNA, he's gone through independent promotions over here, he's gone through NXT, he's the first ever British champion. If you want to get technical about it, he's the first ever Scottish champion, and there was nobody there.
No.
And I think that soured it more than anything.
But you saw the pop that he got for eliminating Lesnar from the Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
I mean, that was incredible.
Yeah. Could you imagine if the crowd was there?
It would have been brilliant. I mean, they were all behind him after that, and it was just such a shame for him.
Yeah.
And British wrestling, really, to not have people there enjoying the moment with him.
Yeah. But there's still time. Fingers crossed. There's still time to make up for that. So let's dive into today's topic, if you don't mind. It is that time of year again. We've so far, at the time recording, we're recording this on the 21st of March. So far we've had 2 confirmed announcements. They are the first male inductee is Eric Bischoff, and the first female who was actually announced before anybody else was Molly Holly, being inducted into the Hall of Fame. Massive congratulations to her, because she was so underrated back in the day.
Great.
So the question is, given everything that's gone on and the current situation, should there be a Hall of Fame class for 2021?
I think for me there should be, because it's entertaining. I think if it's safe for them all to be there in one room, which as it works out, it should be, because of all the testing and things they do. If they can do it, then yes, there's no reason why not. It's an entertaining thing. I watch it before bed sometimes, just to hear some of the old stories and see some of the old wrestlers. But there's no reason why not. If it's safe to do it. But, it has to be like the old ones, like in the 90s, where it was all kind of in one room, and it was all very kind of not necessarily packed in. But if you get it all in one room, not everyone has to be there.
Yeah.
You could just have a party from Molly Holly, you can have a party from Bishop, you can have a party from whoever else is there, maybe 50, 60 people, but it's still entertaining.
I mean, if they're going to do it, and this is what they're going to go with, they're putting the class of 2020 and 2021 into the one night. For me, even if it's to play catch up, they should have had the 2020 class this year.
Yeah.
But then at Survivor Series, towards the end of the year, had the class of 2021.
Yeah.
And people are going to, like, if you've listened to the Turnbuckle Arms and everything, people are going to say, oh, you're just saying that because of Big Dave. You're just saying that because of Big Dave. And it's nothing to do with that.
No.
It's two reasons. Selfishly, one, Davey Boy Smith should be the absolute star of the Hall of Fame.
Yep.
We've wanted it for ages. We alluded before to British wrestling. Fantastic celebration to have. And it should be celebrated, and I think it could get overshadowed, possibly.
Yep. Okay.
But also as well, content.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not too sure whether things are in stone yet, but from what I've read and things that I've seen, you're going to have a 3-hour Raw, you're going to have a Hall of Fame ceremony, and they can be anything up to 4 hours in the first instance.
Yeah.
So if you're going to put 2 classes in, are we looking at a 6-hour, a 7-hour?
You could be looking at 8.
Plus the pre-show.
Yep.
Then you've got NXT over 2 nights. So is that a 4-hour deal split into 2, or is that a 1.5 hour, 3-hour kind of thing? Then you're going to have WrestleMania itself in there as well. Then you've got the aftermaths as well.
Yeah.
And I just think if somebody said to me, listen, this is your schedule for the week, what do you want to drop? Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. I mean, I'd certainly make NXT one night.
Yeah.
I did like the 2 nights of WrestleMania. Must admit, it was too much. There was a lot of filler on there. That really didn't need to be on there. I'm hoping that after all this, they'll go back to one night of WrestleMania. It's too much. WrestleMania, it needs to be a 4-hour show, and that's it. You can't really anything over that is just too much. I mean, there is too much out there now for us to watch. That's the problem I have. Is that I can't keep up with Impact and I can't keep up with AEW if I'm trying to catch up with WWE. There's not enough days, not enough hours in the day.
Yeah. At the moment, it's easier given the situation and given the fact that the UK is still in lockdown, and but once normal life comes back, that's going to be bloody difficult.
Yeah.
I've said it before on the Turnbuckle Arms as well. You can quite easily get up to 24 hours of wrestling content over a week.
Easy.
But I don't know, like, I think that would be the logical approach to at least give wrestling fans a bit of a break, a bit of breathing space.
Yeah.
Is because then you could imagine the hype you could get for Survivor Series. Now, Survivor Series is always special to me because it's one of the big 4. It's one that I will go out of my way to watch.
Yeah.
Especially, I don't know whether you've seen them, but the ones from the early to mid 2000s when it was Raw versus SmackDown, they were absolutely brilliant.
Because you didn't have that every week, did you? It was something a little bit different. Yeah.
The hype that you could get around that, leading up to it and making Survivor Series feel special again.
Yeah.
To be honest. I don't know. It would be nice because then both classes could be celebrated for their individuality, and I think maybe it's not going to be as celebrated, if that makes sense.
No, it makes sense. I mean, if you've got 2 nights of it, it's not one class, it's 2 classes, and you watering it down a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, Bischoff's a massive name. He could go in whenever. Although I'm surprised he's going in this year because obviously he was in AEW for a little while, for a cup of coffee, a little while back. He was there doing some. Oh crikey, what was it? Not refereeing. He was doing some. He was on stage doing something with them, and I was like, "What's going on here?" Well, that was it. He was just there for like a cup of coffee, and that was it.
Ah, fair dues. I did not know that. Interesting. Well, one of the things that's happened over the last sort of 24-ish hours is on the network. I don't know whether you've seen. Either somebody's made a massive fuck up, or they've leaked something they shouldn't have.
Is it to do with Daniel Bryan?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, I know.
For those of you that haven't seen, on the network itself, they have listed under a playlist, I think it is, Hall of Fame inductee Daniel Bryan, and it's loads of things to do with Daniel Bryan, and it's like, was that supposed to be leaked? Has somebody messed up? Have they decided to put Daniel Bryan in now while he's still under contract? Thoughts? What do you think?
It makes sense. I'm not quite sure whether I want to go in now while he's still an active wrestler. It's not really something I like people doing. I think once you're retired, or you just can't do anything anymore, or you're kind of doing the whole anything else to do with it. If you're working at the back, or if you're working on camera, I think that's the time to do it. I think if you're still wrestling, it's kind of like, well, we know you're nearly there, so let's do it now. But I get that he might go somewhere else afterwards.
Yeah, because I don't know whether you know about the rumours that have swirled around his contract status and stuff like that. But last year, early this year, it was widely reported that Daniel Bryan's contract was up. I think it ends in September.
Yes.
I think off the top of my head. And he's made no secret of the fact that he would prefer now to be part-time because he's got a family, he's got 2 young children, and he wants to spend more time with them. And, it makes sense. People are going to start going, oh, he's going to go to AEW, he's going to go to AEW. If he does, great. If he stays with WWE, great, whatever. But are they doing it now while they can still use his name before he goes back to being Bryan Danielson?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, I can't see him going to AEW. I can see him going to Japan.
Yeah.
They will pay good money for him, and he can go and have the match that he wants.
Yeah.
And he can be as physical as he wants to be, and then take a rest for however long. So I think that makes some more sense. Yeah. If he doesn't want to be full time, there'd be no point in going to AEW, who, I think it's a step down for him, really. Okay. I'm not saying AEW is a step down from WWE. I'm just saying I think for him it will be, because, but he has some great matches, but they are more physical there. So for him to go down there and to be hit with stuff like the Lucha Brothers do, I mean, fantastic stuff. But there's some of the moves that they do there. I mean, if they're flying around with DDTs and head scissors and Hurricane Ranas, there's more chance of him hurting his neck again, and I wouldn't want to see it. So I went Kurt Angle to TNA. Didn't want to see it because I knew that something bad could have happened.
Yeah. I mean, if he's inducted into the Hall of Fame this year, congratulations, he absolutely deserves it.
Gotcha.
Wherever he ends up in the future, he will have people that follow him. There's no doubt in my mind. I'd love to see him on NXT, to be honest with you.
Great.
I think if WWE are desperate to keep him, I think that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
That's the route they should go, especially with Adam Cole still being on NXT. I want to see Daniel Bryan versus Adam Cole.
It'd be nice. It'll be good.
So, going back to the Hall of Fame in general, your top 3 wrestlers to go into the Hall of Fame.
And it's the same one as everyone. Owen.
Yeah.
Owen's got to be in there at some point. I know it's hard, but for what he achieved and for the longevity he was there, he's got to go in at some point.
Have you seen the Dark Side of the Ring documentary on it?
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you, I will be shocked if he goes in.
Yeah. It wouldn't be a kind of bona fide Hall of Fame for me without him.
Yeah.
Because of everything he did in there. I mean, I know he's never world champion, but for everything he did and the top stories he was in.
Yeah.
He's got to be in at some point. And I know, obviously, there's always going to be a lot of animosity there.
Yeah.
But I think for his legacy, I know it's out there now on the network to watch. And I know that you can, you go into YouTube and you go into Daily Motion. There's tons of stuff of his on there, and it's fantastic. And if people don't know enough about Owen Hart, go and check it out. He's incredible. The stuff he does and the little things he does and the stories that you hear about him.
Yeah.
You know, he needs to be in there. It's a shame that he's not. I understand why,
Yeah.
and I completely understand why. I hope one day that he can go in. Maybe his children one day will turn around and say, this needs to happen. But I think that would be the only way. I don't think that his wife would change her mind, and quite rightly so.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, Owen's got to be in there.
Okay. So that's one of them.
Maybe not a wrestler as such. Bruce Pritchard.
Yeah. Otherwise known as Brother Love, for those
Yep.
of you that are a little bit unsure who we're on about. If you don't know who Brother Love is, don't worry about it. You're not missing anything. He's annoying. I still want to punch him.
That's the great thing about him, though. That's the great thing about him.
Yeah.
Now, he was good. I mean, Bruce is obviously he's a writer there. He's been a television producer. He's been there for so long. You know, he did a little stint in TNA. He does his wrestling podcast as well. But the amount of things that you hear that he's been involved with, if it wasn't for him, you'd have some of the worst gimmicks in the world you've never heard of, but also some of the best matches that that they've mapped out with him and Pat Patterson and just working on things like that. I think he's got to be in there at some point. Now he's kind of back in favour with them.
Yeah. It's just a case of when, not if, I think. But would they induct him as Brother Love, or would they induct him as Bruce?
I think he's got to go in as Bruce, really, because Brother Love was an acquired taste in the 80s.
Yeah, I mean,
you were supposed to hate him, and he did the job well.
Yeah,
but I think that for everything he's done as far as in the company, I think he's got to go in as Bruce.
Yeah. For those of you that don't know, I was not quite old enough to fully comprehend what was going on. I was probably about 2.5, 3. And I just didn't like him. I couldn't understand why anybody would wear a red shirt with a white suit. I just didn't get it. The thoughts of, 2.5, 3-year-old me. But there we go.
You wait till the next fancy dress party. That's all I'm going to say.
Right, okay. Oh my God.
Something's going to... Last time I went to a fancy dress party, I went as Matt Hardy, V1.
Yes.
So the European Championship. I had long hair at the time, so it's fine.
Yes.
But no, I've got to think of something new now. I've got a few Hulk Hogan things, but the pythons aren't quite big enough yet. I'm not tanned enough either, so.
Yeah, but if we have a good summer, you can get out there, get that nice base tan. You'd be right.
Yeah, but I'll be back in work then, so.
Oh, yeah,
what can you do?
Right. Okay.
Never mind. Last year was the time for it.
Never mind. Next one.
Jericho.
Will it happen though?
Well, that's the thing. I think because I don't know whether you know, but he was the first ever unified champion. He hasn't mentioned it much.
Was he?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But I think he's got to be in there again. I mean, the first unified champion should be in there, really. Matches say it all. He's faced everyone. He's made everyone look better than what they necessarily are at the time.
Yeah.
But he's got to be. I don't know the situation with him at the moment because obviously he's in AEW.
Yeah.
Whether or not in a couple of years' time, and I don't know what his situation is with the company because it seems to be people say he's not in good books and then say it's okay, and it's a lot of kind of hearsay and you don't really know. But I'd like to see Jericho in there.
Yeah.
Even the WCW stuff that was fun.
Yeah, I mean, even off the back of his WCW stuff alone, forget what he's accomplished in WWE. The back of it, that feud with Dean Malenko, where Dean Malenko ended up coming out dressed, was it as La Parker, and took off the mask and stuff like that, for right the way through to him smashing a chair round the ring post, screaming, "This is bullshit! This is a conspiracy." You can't, not have him in the Hall of Fame because of what he was.
And of course, you're forgetting as well, armbar.
Do you know what? I'm just going to put it out there right now. Jericho's list of 1004 holds needs to be in the Hall of Fame on its own.
Yep.
Just because that is iconic, honestly.
There's something. I mean, I haven't seen a four-handled family gridunza in a long time.
Do you know what? I can only get to arm bar and arm drag before that's it. I'm smiling and I've just got the gif of the paper dropping.
Yeah.
But yeah, there we go. Okay. Potential controversy coming up in this question. Who, if anyone, would you like to remove from the Hall of Fame, and why?
I think they're all there on merit. I don't think there's anyone in there I don't particularly think should be in there, or shouldn't be in there, I should say. You look at people like Coco Beware, and you think, was their career in WWE, which is basically a lower mid carder.
Yeah.
But you look at the stuff he did before that, and I've kind of looked back at the stuff, and he was badass. I mean, he would destroy you.
Yeah.
So I think that the people who've done it have they've worked hard. Even people like Johnny Rodz. I mean, you look back at think, well, he was a jobber basically, but he wasn't. If you could get in the ring with him and have a good match, then they knew that you'd be able to do it. So I don't think there's anyone in there that No, I don't think there is. Not that
maybe
I can.
a celebrity or
celebrities. I mean, is Trump in there? Get rid of him.
Yeah.
Get rid of him. But again, it was a fun angle. I mean, no, I'm no fan of Trump at all. But the angle was fun. So I wouldn't even say get rid of him because of that.
Yeah.
No, I can't think of anyone who's maybe Kid Rock, but again, he's very much in with the Attitude Era.
Yeah. I thought about this and I came up with the same sort of things like, Trump, Kid Rock, whatever. And I just thought to myself, well, no, because at the time they're sort of timepieces that stay there. So
I think what it needs to be is that one day, if Nickelback ever go in, they can come out because they suck.
Okay.
So that's Nickelback are the ones that shouldn't ever be in there, and if they are ever in there, then they should be taken out straight away without without question.
They probably will get put in there at some point because weren't they used as a Raw theme?
Absolutely, that's why I've gone for that. Not because I hate them, and but I do kind of hate them. If you listen to my show, you'll know that I don't like them very much. We don't say the N word.
Where can we find your show again?
Radio D side. So it's on. You go on to InTune Radio Player or any radio player on the internet. 6 to 8 on a Tuesday and a Thursday, and Wonderland Radio, which is 8 until 10 on a Wednesday. So and you can also put requests in there as well.
Oh, I like it.
It's all good fun. It's lots of different things every week, but we try and keep it a little bit different to the mainstream rock shows. You hear some of the mainstream stuff, but you hear a lot of stuff which is kind of a little bit under the radar, smaller bands as well. So we try and keep it interesting every week.
Nice. I like it. Thank you. Right. Given everything that happened in the 2019 ceremony, as in people storming the ring, do you think that it will only happen in front of fellow wrestlers now, or will it return to going back to in front of a crowd if and when the world returns to normal?
Well, I mean, I hated it. I hated the whole 2019 setup. It was awful. In the ring, it just wasn't good at all. The way they used to do it was fine.
Yeah.
Put it like in an auditorium, put them on stage. I didn't see any issue with that. Obviously, you've got the wrestlers in the front there. How this idiot got through, I don't know. But I mean, I was watching it live, and I thought, what's going on? This is a stunt or something.
Yeah.
Because the way they actually set the ring up, I didn't think anything different. And then all of a sudden, Hall of Fame is in the ring, and you think, has this been set up for this particular reason? I thought it was an angle at first.
Yeah. I mean, the question is, though, what could have been done with it, especially because it happened with Bret Hart. Like, we know that Bret Hart, in terms of wrestling, if he takes a bump wrong, that's it. It's kind of, game over for him. But I didn't get it. I didn't like it. If I was there, I would have been pissed because you could guarantee I would get the side of the arena that had the backs of them to me.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, well, what's the point?
It didn't make sense. I can't understand why they would change something which didn't really need to be tinkered with.
Yeah.
Whether or not they couldn't do it there, whether or not there was a reason why. But it didn't make any sense. To go from having a stage there to putting it in the ring where it all looked a bit cramped.
Yeah, it did.
Didn't feel like a Hall of Fame. It just felt like a wrestling angle again. And that's why I thought, is this supposed to be happening? And then found out it wasn't. But, again, there was no reason for it. It was just some idiot who had too much to drink or whatever he'd done, maybe. Yeah. And, got beaten by one of the wrestlers grabbed hold of him. What was it?
Was it Big E or something like that?
I'm not sure who it was. I think it was someone out of New Day, and I think it was Ronda Rousey's husband as well, who grabbed him and took him down.
Shit, that's someone you don't want to mess with. Shit.
Yep. If you look back on it, I think it's Ronda Rousey's husband.
Nice. I'm gonna do that later. I'm gonna write that down in a minute.
You can't watch it. It's not on there anymore. You can probably get it on. You can't get it on the network.
Oh.
Because I watched it not long back, and they've cut it.
Say that again. Sorry, you froze.
They've cut it now on the network.
Shocking. Shocking. So the question is then, if they're going to return to normal at some point, is it right that the Hall of Fame takes place exclusively in front of wrestlers? Or should the crowds be allowed in following the old setup where it's the stage and then you have the wrestlers on the lower floor and then the crowds in the upper tiers kind of thing?
So I kind of like the old way of doing it with just the wrestlers there. The problem when the fans are there is they will start chanting things and they'll start shouting little things out, and it can put them off the stride quite a bit. I've seen it with a few people that, I think it was one of the female wrestlers, I can't remember who it was, and they were I think it was Sherry, and somebody was shouting something to her off the top, and she kept answering them, and it completely threw her off where she was going with it, and kept shouting things, and she was like, well, I destroy you and all this lot, and it just, so you can, again, it's people who are going there for a good time, and you understand that they're pumped up, but some people haven't got that limiter to stop them from saying things, and we'll all go to wrestling matches, or like how you go to football and get excited, but it's not as good, I don't think, with the fans in there. There's no reason why not to, but they can't be catcalling and trying to get themselves over.
Yeah.
When somebody's trying to get their story out in front of the whole world, it'd be their only time to do it.
So what they should be doing is restricting the sale of alcohol.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Really.
But people will be drinking all day because it's WrestleMania time. People will be there having a good time. A friend of mine went a couple of years ago, 2018 maybe, and said just that's all it was. Just people were getting drunk and enjoying themselves, and quite rightly so. You pay a lot of money to go and do it, but it's very, very tricky to to restrict them from not doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I see it from both sides, to be honest with you. I don't mind either format. I can take or leave the crowd being there or not. But for me, if it's somebody like, just trying to think now, if it's somebody like Davey Boy Smith, let's just use him for the example, who the audience haven't been able to see for a long time for very obvious reasons, or they've been away and they've not been in another promotion or whatever. Sometimes having that crowd reaction is quite nice.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Sometimes, but then obviously there's always one. Yeah. No matter what sport it is, there is always one. And it's a shame because they might not have seen that. So I don't know how old David Boy Smith's children were when David Boy passed away. So I don't know whether they've seen the crowd react to his music and to, his work. So that could be something really nice for them.
Absolutely, yeah.
And of course they won't see it because of the current situation in the world, but it's one of them. It's like, which one is the lesser of two evils? Because if you look at how WrestleMania is marketed, certainly over here, it's marketed as the package. Yeah. You've got NXT, SmackDown, Raw, WrestleMania, Hall of Fame ceremony.
Yeah.
And then you've got Access Week on top of that.
And you've got a ton of other shows going on around the same time.
Yeah. So if you are WWE out to the max, you could go to Progress or you could go to whatever. Would it be WrestleMania weekend without being able to see the Hall of Fame? Or do you go, okay, this Hall of Fame thing in WrestleMania weekend is a bit too much. Why don't we move it to another big four? Why don't we move it to SummerSlam, for example?
I mean, it's workable. I don't think it has to happen at WrestleMania. I think because everyone is hyped up for that time, then yeah, I can't see why. But there may be a call to do it other times. You know, obviously Royal Rumble's a big one. SummerSlam was always my favorite anyway.
Yeah,
could do it then. But I don't think it has to be then. I think you could do it the week before and start WrestleMania week.
Yeah.
But I don't think. I think for me, I would watch Hall of Fame. I'd watch NXT.
Yeah.
Live, and then I would probably watch WrestleMania now the day after.
Yeah.
It's too much.
Yeah. Yeah. I do exactly the same. You know, I've made no secret I'm certainly more invested in NXT than I am anything on the main roster at the moment, but it's one of them. So right, thinking to sort of future Hall of Fame ceremonies or just Hall of Fame in general, do you think that WWE will ever have a physical Hall of Fame?
It would be nice. I don't know how they do it. Whether they could get, wrestling boots or pictures or things like that. I know years ago they did like a hotel, and they were going to get some of the older guys to come in and not work there, but do meet and greet things. So you could have, like they do on a lot of football tours, you could have one of the older wrestlers taking you around there.
Yeah.
It'd be great. How to pull it off? It'd be like a museum. So if you go to say Liverpool museums, which we do regularly, it's great.
Yeah.
But you've got to have something a bit more. It's got to be very interactive. It's got to have things for everyone in there. So I think for me, you start off right at the start.
Yeah.
Maybe from the start of you can start off from the dawn of time. Got Hackersmith. You could go from the start of the Capital Wrestling. Wherever you wanted to go from, you could go and then lead all the way through. The problem with that is, of course, is that it's never going to end. So how far does it go?
Yeah, and also what constitutes as an important exhibit, if that makes sense. I don't know where it is on the network. I can't remember what it's under, but there's a bit on the network, and they go to this sort of like warehouse bit at Titan Towers, and it literally has random ass bits of memorabilia. I think from what I remember, there's things like the ring cover from the very first SmackDown. There's part of the SmackDown stage. There's loads of stuff that could quite easily go on display. I mean, they could do it looking at something like the Hard Rock Cafe model. So bits of memorabilia essentially travel the world from different locations. So if you happen to go to, there's one in Manchester, it's the closest one to us. So if you went to the Hard Rock Cafe in Manchester, say now, you'd see, Slash's guitar from Guns N' Roses. You'd go in a year later and there'd be somebody else's guitar instead of Slash's and stuff like that. But what constitutes as memorabilia and what doesn't?
I mean, you could go and have. It depends on what they've got available, because obviously you've got say the original World Championship. Is that still available? Not the original, but if you go back to say the one that Hogan won first of all, so it's like the green outer one, the small one. Have you still got the Winged Eagle belts? Have you got the old Intercontinental Championship? Have you got the old Raw and
SmackDown tag team titles?
Anything like that? Are they available? Have you got one of Andre's boots? Have you got a torn Hogan shirt? You've got to look at all these things. One of Flair's robes. Have you got Savage's hat? Have you got? It's got to be something that people can be interested in. Yeah,
I mean, the one that's jumped into my head is, have you got the Eric Bischoff bike that he sat on when he came down from the roof? And also what's Jim Cornette's role in all this? Because we all know that Jim Cornette has got everything. He's got everything. Like, you name it, he's got it.
It depends on which mood he's in, and it depends how much he's on in good terms with Vince, which I don't know at the moment.
Probably
But
not.
it also depends on how much they're going to pay him.
Yeah.
Because I mean, he's got everything there. I mean, you see him on documentaries, and he's got so much stuff. It's unreal. I'd love to go and have a couple of days there just to search through it all.
Yeah.
But
to be fair,
it depends, because I mean, I know he's not a massive fan of the current thing. He hasn't been for years. You know, he's kind of Smoky Mountain, and that's what he does.
Yeah.
And that's the type of wrestling he does, and he's done it very well. But he's always been. I never saw, James Cornette really as a WWE guy. He was always WCW, or he was Smoky Mountain, or he's always an NWA guy. And it always seems that whenever they talk about him, no matter, even if he was just working there as a manager, he was always at odds with someone there.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you say that, because my memory of Jim Cornette is in WWE. WWF, as it was at the time, with the tennis racket.
Yeah.
Could never understand why it was a fucking tennis racket.
Yeah.
Genuinely couldn't understand. But I was a child, and but for me, no matter the stance that Jim Cornette has and your opinion of him, he is fighting to keep aspects of wrestling history alive that would have been forgotten.
Yeah.
And to watch him in documentaries, like I mentioned it before, the Dark Side of the Ring documentary about Owen Hart, to see him get that emotional, to see him get that raw and vulnerable on camera, is something I'd never thought I'd see.
But he's still in love with the business. No matter what is thrown at him, he still loves it. He's still got the passion for it. Yeah. Which, if you've still got it now after everything he's been through, and he's had success, and he's had highs and lows, still love it with that passion. Now that's kayfabe.
Yeah.
It's still real to him, because it is.
It is.
It is. There's no two ways about it. He's very outspoken. He says some things which I completely agree with and completely disagree with. Yeah. But at the end of the day, there's nobody out there really, maybe one or two, but that have got the knowledge and the insight that he's got. He's been there and done it all, and he's seen it all.
Yeah. Is he in the Hall of Fame?
I think so. I'm pretty sure he is.
Yeah, I think he is. If not, that is somebody that deserves to be in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely 100%. Even if you have to do a pre-recorded acceptance speech and chop it so he doesn't go off.
Yeah. And also you got to think of things like the New Midnight Express as well. I mean,
yeah.
But that's probably Vince's problem.
Hey, yeah. Right. So, theoretical question, pulling it back to the Hall of Fame. Given the changes that have happened with NXT in recent memory, will there be a section of the Hall of Fame dedicated to NXT alumni?
I think if it holds on as its own brand, then yes.
Yeah.
Because I don't think you're going to see. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think you're going to see Samoa Joe in the Hall of Fame. Certainly in the NXT. Nakamura, again, he's kind of got up there. He's been semi-successful, but not really successful. Bobby Roode, he's never really going to make Hall of Fame material because it hasn't been used well. I'm not saying that they couldn't do it because of how good or not they are, because they're very, very good wrestlers.
Absolutely.
But I couldn't see that. Whereas an NXT one, if it's been running for a long time now. I mean, I look back and think, oh, it's just like the old ECW, where they used to do WWE ECW. Yeah. But it's not, because it's been going much, much longer. And I think that if it stays as its own brand, then yes. But it depends on how cyclical it is as well, because wrestling goes through, kind of peaks and troughs. And if people aren't watching it, and nobody, say the wrestling kind of business takes a turn down again, and people aren't watching it, and people, AEW are beating them by quite a bit every week now. And I just see two really good wrestling programs. I watch both as much as I can.
Yeah.
But I can't always. It's tricky, because if people aren't watching enough and they say, hang on a second, we're not going to renew your contract, someone will take it up. But if the money isn't there, they won't run it, because why would you run something that's losing money?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I hope it continues, and I hope it does. I hope
Yeah.
there's a Hall of Fame, but I think it's too new at the moment.
Okay.
But you certainly have, there's at least 10 candidates already.
Yeah.
Easily, maybe 15 candidates that go straight in.
Yeah. The one that springs to mind for me is Tyler Breeze.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Tyler Breeze, when he returned to face the Velveteen Dream, lost my collective shit. And I was like, just do it. Just win the fucking title. Just win the fucking title off him. I don't care whether it's Velveteen Dream or not. Just win the fucking title and come back. Because he's so loved.
Yeah.
He's so loved on that brand.
But completely underused in everything else.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like pulling it sort of back to now, if you like. I don't understand why Shinsuke Nakamura and Seth Rollins are feuding now.
No, there's no real need for it, apart from it'll be a good match.
What it needs is a championship. They could have had a world title level feud with the two of them had they been used correctly.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it like Nakamura was completely muted as soon as he came in because they changed his music, or it was just it didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
That was one of the things which it was a spectacle to see him coming out there. I think when he's in the ring, because obviously, I mean, his English is pretty good, but he doesn't connect that well with the fans in the ring. I think the stuff he does is phenomenal, really good wrestler, but I don't know, that there seems to be that was his connection, that excitement before the match, and then they were into it. Now it's a case of, okay, he's coming to the ring, okay, we'll get involved. This seems to have a way of taking away those parts. I don't know why.
Yeah, but we need to thank the music gods and the wrestling music gods that he's gone back to his old stuff. And
absolutely, yeah.
Fingers crossed, when everything goes back to normal, we will blow our voices singing to that song.
Well, we did see him, didn't we, in the dark match? But it wasn't. It was the other theme, wasn't it? So we didn't even get that. It wasn't the full theme he played.
Was it? I'm sure it was, because you were saying again. My memory doesn't surround the match itself; it surrounds you. You were telling me about how there was a little lad that was walking out and goes, "Daddy, where's Bobby Roode? Where's Shinsuke Nakamura?"
Yeah.
And they missed that match because they
dark match.
Yeah. I don't even remember who they were against, to be honest.
No, I don't.
If you were there, please let us know.
I think I'd gone to get a drink.
You did.
And I missed I think I missed a bit of that, and I missed most of 205 because it was just so everyone's getting a drink after the AJ Styles match because they just
to be fair,
shattered.
And to be fair, most of them had thrown their pints in the air in celebration.
Yeah.
So, but there we go.
Absolutely right.
Right. Last question now. Obviously, we know that Molly Holly is the first female of the class of 2021. My last podcast focused on the role of women in wrestling. So the question is, should Chyna be inducted into the Hall of Fame?
Yes.
Excellent.
I think so.
We'll leave it there. See you later.
She's a tricky one because I think that as a worker, she couldn't hold a candle to most of the women there now.
Yeah.
I think at the time it was a tricky time because obviously the ladies weren't being used properly.
Yeah.
But I think for the amount of kind of news she generated for the company, who she was involved with, so obviously part of DX. She needs to be in there for that. The stuff with Eddie alone, I mean, that was brilliant.
Yeah.
But it's what happened after is the problem, and obviously I don't think that it would be kind of Triple H and Stephanie saying, because of the whole relationship they had there. I don't think it's that.
But you see, you can say that, right? Knowing, like, about the past and stuff like that, if you were sort of going down the road of, oh, she was an adult film star. What about Sunny?
That's
Sunny
the other thing I was
in
going
the
to say,
Hall of Fame,
yeah.
And she is still quite active, as far as I know, doing, quite X-rated stuff out there. So what's the difference? Oh, well, the factor is Triple H.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I mean, I think when the DX one went in, they were all mentioning China and things like that, and I know he did. So there's no reason why not. But is it a case of we wait a little bit longer? But I don't know. I think because I mean, you can see when she went to TNA and things like that, she was a mess.
She was,
and it's a shame because she seemed to be getting better as a worker, certainly. I always quite liked her. I thought she was menacing. I think that she looked the part. She really looked the part. But when she started doing the work with Eddie and things like that, you saw a different side to her, and it was almost like she seemed like she'd be really cool. Yeah. And it's a shame that obviously she's not with us anymore. Yeah. But I think if she was with us now, then she'd be doing. What would she be doing? Because I don't think she'd be wrestling anymore. I don't think that the whole kind of bodybuilding thing would have been carrying on. What do you do then? Do you go back to, right, okay, I'm going to start doing the adult stuff again? Because, I mean, it's not good.
No.
But she was well known throughout the world. How many other people have done that? I mean, you've got people like Pamela Anderson who's been caught, and it's been all over the internet years ago.
Yeah. Kim Kardashian.
Yeah, but it hasn't changed them. No. As far as people wanting to meet them and their kind of exposure.
Yeah.
But yet it seemed to, Sean Waltman's back there.
Yeah.
He was in the film with her.
Yeah.
So
the argument could be made though that was his only one that I know of.
I'm not going to go and search it. It's not going to happen.
Neither do I.
No.
But that was his only one, and it wasn't like it was filmed with the sole purpose of being viewed by millions of people.
No, see, I only thought China did the one, so I don't know anything more than that.
The reason why what? It comes back to you again. I found out about the website 411mania.com.
Yeah,
because of you, and for years that was one of my main sources of information. Yeah. And it came up and it was like, China has been announced for, and it was another film. And I was just like, are you serious? So, yeah. But anyway, I'll let you carry on.
She should. I think she should be for what she did. I think that she brought a lot of eyes there. You had Nicole Bass doing a very similar type of gimmick at the time, but just not the same. Yeah. She had that look about her. She looked like there was just something about her which is good. Works wise, I mean, you put her in the ring with say, I think she was in the ring with like Jericho quite a bit, and he made her look okay, but she couldn't really go. If you put her in there against anyone now, they would be leading the match.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'll be honest with you. I'm not going to sit here and say that she was the greatest wrestler I've ever seen.
No.
However, for me, as a young female wrestling fan, she was the first female Intercontinental Champion. She was penned at one point to win the Royal Rumble. She was the first female Royal Rumble entrant. And I always have this question of what if? What if they'd have pulled the trigger and gone, yes, let's make her? Because, let's be honest with you, when she won the Women's Championship, I got the sense that she wasn't being used as well as what she could have been.
No, because the Women's Championship meant nothing then.
But also in that division.
Yeah, she was already kind of above that at the time. I'm not trying to knock the workers at the time, but they weren't having it. It wasn't a real division then. You had plenty of people who could work. You had Trish, and you had Gail Kim, you had Jazz, Jacqueline, things like that, who could work, but they weren't used. If they were, imagine them now in the women's division, that would be incredible because there's some great workers there, but they used them like bra and panties matches and and all that sort of rubbish. And I would turn off them because I thought this is a waste of time. And then when they let them go, when you get like Trish versus Lita, for instance, brilliant.
Yeah.
But she was a fighter in a division where it was more TNA.
Yeah.
Which was a shame because it could have been so much better.
Absolutely. But it's one of them. I mean, if they're going to do it, I hope it's within sort of the next decade.
There'd be no point otherwise. She'd be forgotten then.
Um,
Sadly, she'd be forgotten.
Unfortunately, and people, you look at the likes of Sasha Banks, and Bailey are well versed, and they talk a lot about their influences. And what I want to see come through is somebody that goes, well, actually, I knew who Eddie Guerrero was. I knew who the Macho Man was. I knew who the Ultimate Warrior was. But I went back and I looked at the first female Intercontinental Champion. I looked at China, because whether or not she could go or not, she was history making.
And she looked like a wrestler.
Yeah, she did.
The girls at the time didn't always look like them. I mean, you look at Tori Wilson, for instance, who came on leaps and bounds.
Yeah, absolutely.
During her time there, but she didn't look like a wrestler. Neither Stacey Keibler. She was in matches, but she wasn't a wrestler. She looked, China looked like a wrestler.
Yeah, Stacey Keibler started out as a Nitro girl, didn't she?
Yeah. And she did very well for herself. She was great on camera, looked wonderful. She could certainly work towards the end of it. Yeah. But at first, she'd been put in the ring and not knowing what to do, and it was awful because it wasn't her fault. Yeah. She was, she's brought in as something. Some people are lucky; they come in like Vicky Guerrero, for instance, came in and did fantastically. She's not a wrestler, she's not power, but she did. She got in the ring and did what she had to do. But some people take a bit longer, and she was obviously a very, very fit girl, but she wasn't. Like China, you can see her picking people up and throwing them around. You couldn't really see that with somebody like Stacey. It wasn't going to happen because she was always a very petite, small girl, apart from the legs, obviously. But we won't talk about them.
We won't say anything.
So I watched Taboo Tuesday 2004 earlier on today.
Yeah.
And they had a Fulfill Your Fantasy Women's Championship match. Now this is because I knew it was on there, and to hear the King.
I was going to say, is it the King?
And my word, you could not get away with it today. And it was awful. It was absolutely awful. But I knew it was on there, and I thought, I've got to try and find this before we talk today. And it was terrible. And you look how different women's wrestling is now, and it's fantastic. To see the difference now. But I think you can kind of attribute that to, I would say, Stephanie McMahon coming through and wanting that to happen, and certainly people like Fit Finlay training them. And
also the fans as well, because that whole hashtag Give Divas a Chance thing was just something unbelievable. And then you had the likes of Becky Lynch, and you had the likes of Sasha and Bailey, and even Charlotte. I mean, don't get me wrong, I get sick of seeing Charlotte Flair with the title. I don't get sick of Charlotte Flair wrestling. I get sick and tired of seeing her with the title.
Yeah, but you could also say that about her dad. He was always the champion, and people you pay to see him get beaten or trying to get beaten. So I can see why they're going with that, and I can see she's very, very good in the ring.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I mean, in this day and age, you need to be kind of split so you can get some different stories in there. Get one or two of the other girls involved a little bit. And I think Naomi's fantastic. I think she's superb.
Yeah.
But is she championship level? Not at the moment.
No.
But as as an in-ring, fantastic. Yeah. Really, really good.
Yeah, and I mean as well, people forget this about Trish Stratus. When Trish Stratus joined, well, no disrespect to her, Trish Stratus was there because she had plastic tits and an arse.
She was a model. That's what she was.
That's all it was.
Yeah.
And it took. People forget that between sort of 99 to sort of 2002, she was learning the craft.
Yeah.
So some of the matches that she had weren't the greatest. You go back and watch one's intergender matches from SmackDown, for example. They're not the greatest, but people forget about that because of what happened afterwards.
Yeah.
And when I've spoken to people and used Eva Marie as the example and said, listen, Eva Marie should not have been anywhere near the main roster at that time at all.
Yeah, no, I agree.
If she'd have gone back to NXT and had work given to her, and if you like, for lack of a better term, like homework for her to do, and just keep her off TV, and then slowly reintroduce her, but not as, oh look, that's Eva Marie. Something a bit different.
Yeah.
What's this about? She could have had a fighting chance, but unfortunately, they didn't. And I think we're at an age now where it's just not going to wash anymore.
I think they're missing things like you kind of FCWs and things like that, where you can go and work in front of people who they'll know who you are, but they're not necessarily there because you're a superstar. They're there because they're local. They want to go and see some matches. You've had people like Big Show going back down there. You have Mark Henry going back down there back in the day. They had to because the work wasn't good enough. And not saying the work isn't. Mark Henry turned into a fantastic wrestler in the end. But they weren't right then. So you bring them back up as a badass. Mark Henry didn't come back up as sexual chocolate. He came back up as a badass at the end of it. Which is a shame because with his lovely child hand and things. But
he's got to work to provide that. Got to work.
So is Jerry Beadle, but that's not the.
I'm not saying anything.
Yes, but you could have brought her up as something different. There was no reason to do that. I mean, you take Drew for example. When he went, he's like part of the three three thingy crew.
Oh, 3-man band.
That's 3-man band. I think it's 2 Live Crew for some reason. Old 90s hip hop band.
I thought you were trying to go for something like 3 Count, which was like.
It was like
WCW
Helms and
thing.
no. I was trying to think what it was, but when he was in them, obviously it was a joke. He came back and he was bigger and he was made to look like a badass.
Yeah.
And that's what you need to do when you come back up. There's no point in coming back up and being like it's kind of like a ripple in the ocean. You need to be a drop in the ocean. You really make a big deal about it. So I think when if she'd have come back in with fanfare or a storyline behind her, it would have made more sense. Who's been attacking divas in the locker room, or who's been doing this, or who's been doing that, or who is this masked wrestler who keeps coming out, and then all of a sudden take it off and it's her, and that's where it comes from. So
I would just like to point back to use the storylines from SmackDown 2 for the PlayStation 1.
Yeah.
So you see like backstage, and it's like Shane McMahon and insert name here are talking backstage. What's this about? That's what it should be.
Yeah.
But the reason why I mentioned the likes of Trish Stratus is because she didn't start out the greatest, but she's Hall of Fame.
Absolutely.
Mark Henry, Hall of Fame. Big Show, if he's not already, one day he's going to be in the Hall of Fame.
You'd hope so. Again, it depends on the mood that Vince is in on the day, because now he's in EAW.
Yeah.
It's a case of, well, he's left us now. Do we bring them back in? There was a while where they probably wouldn't have touched TNA guys, and now slowly back. Obviously, Kurt Angle and Ric Flair and things. How long will they be there, and how much of a difference do they make to their company?
Yeah, but going like what we were saying with Jericho as well, the sheer impact, for lack of a pun, that the Big Show had. One of the first things he did in WWE was pull down the Titantron and cut it with that massive pole.
Yeah.
So, that was a fantastic way of introducing him and stuff like that. And then obviously what he's gone on to achieve and the matches he's been a part of. He dropped the US title to John Cena at WrestleMania 20. Yeah. He's an integral part of history, whether we like it or not.
Of course he is. I mean, you look at the things with like Brock Lesnar when the ring broke. It's just things. Unreal things. But it was. He should be. I mean, I was never a massive fan of his work all the time. I think when he was motivated, he was good. I really liked him in ECW. I really liked him there because he was. It was almost like he seemed to be kind of regenerated a little bit.
Yeah.
And then when he came back up, his work over the last couple of years when he has worked, he's looked better than ever.
Yeah.
So it's like if AEW used him correctly, there's no reason why he couldn't be even better than what he has been.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I mean, another now AEW guy, Sting.
Yeah.
We don't know the conditions or the terms of his contract. We know that Tony Khan, for example, is very, very much will protect you, will do this, we'll do whatever you're comfortable with, we'll modify things. It could be that the Big Show was offered a similar sort of thing.
I hope so, because for longevity, he needs that. He can't be working every week, but he should be used as a special attraction.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, but give him to someone. You know, give him to someone who they're trying to build.
Yeah.
You know, give him to maybe one of the smaller guys. Just trying to think who, crikey, who you could even use with him. It's like get Darby Allin in there with him.
Yeah.
And make him lose to him. Make him lose to him until finally he gets that victory 6 months down the line.
Yeah.
You know, or someone, maybe not Darby, because he's kind of built up a little bit now. But you know, one of those guys. You know, there's the option there.
Yeah. Who is it out of Jurassic Express? Jungle Boy.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Make him work against those. You know, he's not going to lose to them, but make people think. Actually, do you know what? You know, they could have got that there. Maybe they made one mistake in, you know, go for a big move, and they just don't pin him in time. You've got to give him something to think. Hang on a minute, they could get him here, but make him out to be unbeatable. Make him out to not be the guy who's losing to Spike Dudley on heat and velocity.
Yeah.
Make him out to be the guy who was a world champion and who's broken rings and who's, you know, he's done all this thing. You know, he's a huge guy. There's no reason why you can't use him like that, because you're not going to use him in the type of match you get with the other wrestlers in there. You're not going to put him in the ring with like the Young Bucks and have that type of match. He'd just be swatting them away. You know, there'd be no need for it. But again, use him as he should be used, not in a one-on-one wrestling match where it's like catch as catch can. Because we've seen that with Kane. It was awful.
Yeah.
It was not good.
Right. Very last question before we wrap it up. Any predictions for the Hall of Fame for this year then?
It's so tricky. So I was going to say Heyman.
Oh, that's a shout, that.
But now Eric's gone in. I don't think it's going to be time. I think that if they do it like kind of like round Philadelphia area, I think he'll go in then. This year is so open.
Yeah, I mean, if
all the big names, I think, are in now. I don't think there's any kind of big names out there that aren't really, you know, that aren't in there yet.
Regal, for me.
Regal will go in, but I don't think he's going to go in as a he's certainly not a headliner.
No.
It's the headline ones. I mean, Regal would be great to go in because, I mean, the work he's doing now alone is fantastic. And if people haven't read his book, they should. It's such a good read. My favourite wrestling book ever.
I have that.
Walking a Golden Mile. It's brilliant. But yeah, I mean, he should certainly be in there. There's people in there. You know, there's a lot of people who deserve to be in there, but you can't just say he or she is going to be a main eventer.
I'm going to put it out there, and I'm going to say I reckon they could make Nancy Benoit woman, whatever you want to induct her as. I reckon if she was billed right, they could make her the star.
Possibly, but you've got three things against it, really. Obviously, you've got what happened.
Yeah.
You've got the fact she wasn't a WWE girl, ECW and WCW, and it depends on the situation with Sullivan, really, as well, because, I mean, Sullivan maybe... I don't know enough about him to say anything, really, but if he was kind of against it as well, would they be saying, well, you know, okay, we don't do it? You know, would they go to him and say, do you think this is a good idea? Because obviously he's still part of the business, so would they say to him, you know, is this a good idea yet? Because I don't think it ever will be.
You see, for me as well, from what I have seen of Nancy, I didn't see her ECW stuff, but I remember her being with Ric Flair.
Yeah.
You know, out on Nitro and stuff like that. And I do remember, obviously, you know, Chris and Nancy getting together and not fully understanding, and because obviously I was still a child. But it would be nice to see her sort of honoured.
I think in a wrestling Hall of Fame, absolutely.
Yeah.
She was a big name. She was there with a lot of big names, and she was very, very good at ringside.
Yeah.
She would do very, very subtle things to make the crowd hate her, which is great. But I think in WWE they would try and keep away from it simply because of what happened, and that's a shame.
Yeah,
that is a shame. Another person that probably could think about going in is say Vicky Guerrero. But
Possibly,
again, I think she's with AEW again now. It's tricky because a lot of people are going kind of flopping in between.
Yeah.
Don't really know where to go with it now. So it's whoever's available, whoever's in good books. I just can't think of a headliner that would do it.
I mean, the obvious one is Triple H.
I think until he's sure he's not going to do it again.
Yeah.
I mean, the one that's going to happen is obviously when he's no longer with us is Vince.
Yeah.
And that will be, I think you just have a Hall of Fame just for him, just one night of him.
Yeah.
Because it's got to be done. I think that it's going to happen one day, sadly. But until he's gone, I think that maybe Triple H would do exactly the same. Just wait.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any need for him to go in yet because he's still an on-air character, although not all the time. But the amount of things he's doing, he can still come back out and have matches because he's a fit guy. I mean, he's going to go out there and still have a good match.
Yeah.
No matter what you think about him personally or what you think about him as, does he hold people back? Does he have his favourites, etc.? I don't think he does. I just think he's a good heel.
I mean, the other person is John Cena.
Yep. But again, is he finished? Does he will? I mean, he's got to go in at some point. But when do they do it? When do they do it? Does he have another run? Coming from another run, and then hang it up. Have a retirement match.
Yeah.
Give him give him somebody rubbish to lose to. It all depends.
Yeah, I mean, is the Undertaker in yet?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he went in year before last, I think.
Interesting.
I think he did. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm sure he has.
Yeah.
If not, then absolutely.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna have to have a look at that. It's been a long week.
To be fair.
So I'm just trying to think of people who aren't in there, but there are obviously. You look at other promotions from years gone by, and it's probably from there. You look back at the kind of the 80s and 90s characters. Is Earthquake in there?
Don't think so.
Is Tugboat
in there?
Well, it should be.
That's who it needs to be.
Yeah. Well, no, that was Tugboat. Was it Fred Ottman? That was.
Ah.
Yeah, that was Tugboat.
Ah.
Uncle Fred.
I think, but I'm not sure. I think he might follow the Turnbuckle Arms on Twitter.
Ah.
I'm not sure, but it's either that or Earthquake.
It's definitely not Earthquake because he's been dead for a couple of years.
So there you go.
Unfortunately, yeah. And he used to do a lot of stuff with WrestleCrap back in the day. And I had the book, and he did like a foreword for it. And he's such a nice guy, and he was really poorly at the time. So yeah, he passed away, and that's why I think he may already be in there.
Yeah.
But again, there's so many people who are in there you wouldn't even think about, and then all of a sudden you'll come up with, crikey, this person is in there. So yeah, it all depends. Is it work rate? Is it who the fans want? Is it because somebody's sadly passed away? Is it because somebody's got a new lease of life doing something else? There's so many kind of variables with it. But one thing you can say is if you've made it all the way up there, there's no reason why you shouldn't go in there because you've obviously worked hard. There's no one on there who you say they don't work hard because they're traveling here, there, and everywhere. They're working every night through injuries.
Yeah.
I would say that anyone could realistically go in.
Yeah.
Apart from Nickelback,
Yeah. Absolutely agree with that one. And he who shall not be named.
Again, it's a shame because work-wise, superb, but no,
I mean, look at the history.
It will never happen. It'll never happen.
I mean, my heart goes out to his kids, because irrespective of what he did, and for clarity, he is Chris Benoit. Irrespective of what he did at the end of his life, when you look back at the history he made, in terms of everything he did, he spanned ECW, WCW, he was in New Japan, he was in WWF, then he was in WWE, everything. It's a shame that somebody that talented made it so he couldn't be recognised.
it's strange because he was always one of these people who wanted to be the best at everything.
Yeah.
And to do that, obviously, it's a terrible, horrible thing to do. But for his own legacy, he would have wanted, a body of work to be left behind. It's not there anymore. It's gone. And people, I said earlier, I was watching Taboo Tuesday 2004. He was on there, tagging with Shawn Michaels for the Tag Team Championships against La Resistance.
I
haven't watched that, but he was getting ready for it. And you just think to yourself, you kind of want to enjoy it, but it's not the same anymore.
I think
The celebrations with him and Eddie Guerrero when they both won the championships, at the time, it was such a great moment. And now you look back and think,
yeah.
It's sad. It's sad.
For me, I have to separate Chris Benoit, the man, from Chris Benoit, the wrestler.
Yeah, of course.
And that's how I've been able to sort of go back. I mean, he had a cracking, I think it was best of 7 series against Booker T for the US Championship, on SmackDown. And that's absolutely fantastic to watch. But in the back of your mind, you've always got what he did. But I don't think it'll ever happen.
I can't see it happening. There's no one else in there who's done anything remotely like that.
Jimmy Snuka.
Well, I mean,
Sorry.
Again, it's a tricky one because there's no guarantee on it. There's no black and white. It's like looking at the Gino Hernandez murders and things like that. People have said for years it was a certain person. Then it ended up not being them. They spoke to the family about it, and you think to yourself, well, hang on a second. All fingers point, but unless you can guarantee it, they're not going to use it. And maybe I don't know.
I think the way that WWE dealt with it when it first happened, so that Raw episode that was in tribute to him, I think that will forever be the stain that holds WWE back from doing it.
Yeah.
Because when it was running, you could tell that something had changed quite quickly. And I didn't see it until I got back. I was in the States at the time. I was working in America at the time.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. And for about 4 weeks, when I walked into the staff canteen, his image was on the TV, and they were having some sort of a debate about him and professional wrestling.
It was massive, absolutely massive.
Yeah.
I remember the night it happened. I just moved into a flat, and I was in the spare room, in my tiny little room there, and it happened. I was watching it all night, and I kept watching it unfold. And then the night after, say on Raw, and I may have even been talking to you on MSN at the time.
My God.
Because I was speaking to a few people who were into wrestling at the time on there, and I remember it happening, and he thinks, well, what's happened here? Then you kind of see from the Regal interview, something wasn't right. And then the night after, I mean, I've kind of been up all night. I thought, right, get the popcorn out. What's going on here? As wrestling fans do, but. Yeah. It's what it was, and it's horrible. But you kind of hoped in the back of your mind, and it's horrible, is to say that somebody else has done it.
Yeah, yeah.
And unfortunately, that's not the case. And yeah.
Anyway, right, we'll pause for there.
Yeah.
So it's a difficult one, really is. But anyway, right. I think that's a good place to sort of end this episode.
Sure.
So just remind everyone where you can be found on things like social media and stuff like that, if and your channel.
Yeah, if you want to get in touch with us, it's channel.connelli. So it's CHANNELL and then a dot and then CONNELLI, and that's on Facebook. And you can get me at Carlos Connelli on Twitter as well. And if you want to follow the show on there, you can do. And we have requests. We have little things every week, like question of the week. And we have little competitions and things, and just have a bit of fun. It's 2 hours of rock and alternative and punk music, but with a little bit of a twist.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I try very hard to listen to it in work.
I know.
So yeah, but thank you once again for being on.
Thank you.
You've been ace, as always. Thank you to everyone at the Johners Podcasting Network for making this possible. It just wouldn't happen without you, basically. I hope I've done you proud. You can follow me on social media at Grappuchino on Twitter, and there's actually a link to a link tree that takes you to all of my socials from there. And if you want to send me anything, any topics, any questions that you may want to ask, or any suggestions of topics or guests, you can get in contact with me at grappuccinothoughts@gmail.com. And even though we are still in a crazy, crazy, crazy time that we live in, stay safe, be kind, watch pro wrestling. Much love. I'll speak to you soon. Thank you. See you later.